In a statement, Donald Trump called for the total and complete shutdown of Muslim immigration to America. He added, quote, "Our country cannot be the victims of horrendous attacks by people that believe only in jihad." Trump said the ban should last until U.S. officials, quote, "figure out what's going on." Last night, President Obama urged the nation not to discriminate against American Muslims.
If we're to succeed in defeating terrorism, we must enlist Muslim communities as some of our strongest allies, rather than push them away through suspicion and hate. That does not mean denying the fact that an extremist ideology has spread within some Muslim communities. There's a real problem that Muslims must confront without excuse.
Trump's Republican opponents uniformly condemned his proposal. Ben Carson said everyone entering the country should register and be monitored, but, quote, "I would not advocate being selective on one's religion." John Kasich said Trump's idea was more of the outrageous divisiveness that characterizes his every breath.
And Major Garrett is in our Washington bureau now. You know, this call to ban all Muslims happens on a day, Major, the anniversary of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, after which this nation rounded up Japanese Americans and sent them to internment camps. Is there any legitimacy to what Donald Trump has proposed?
Well, it runs counter to the 5th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution. The 5th and the 14th both provide due process. The 14th provides equal protection under the law. And if you look at what some of the Trump advisors have said in the aftermath of this quote-unquote policy paper, which is really nothing more than a press release, they say, well, we can do this and it's for maximum security because the country is at a sense of danger, that it feels ill at ease and it feels that the government has let it down. Well, there are all sorts of practical as well as constitutional problems with this. The practical problems you run into almost immediately when you talk to Trump advisors who say even American citizens who are Muslims and who are overseas working or serving in the United States military could not come home, as well as every kind of other immigration check, whether it be visas, passports, everything else. The Trump people talk about asking everyone at the checkpoint, what is your religious affiliation? Essentially applying a religious test throughout the entire federal government when it deals with immigration. Not only is that a constitutional problem, it is a practical problem. And contest of this raises some very serious issues about what has been, until now, regarded as sometimes outrageous rhetoric from Trump. Is this outrageous? Yes. But does it also raise the specter of other issues, especially in light of what President Obama said yesterday and what counterterrorism experts also tell us? That this country and anyone involved in counterterrorism needs to have open, honest relationships and communication with any community, in this case the Muslim community, in which terrorist plotting or radicalization can and does occur. If you make it impossible to have those kind of conversations and that kind of cooperation, what happens? You make the fight against that very terrorism all the more difficult. That's why Hillary Clinton said today this idea was not just reprehensible, she said it makes us less safe.
The other thing is the Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson said today is the last thing that you need is for American Muslims to feel like they have to run and hide. What you need is for them to feel connected as Americans and to offer up their support and their information so it prevents future attacks. To say nothing of the fact that you have this happening on a day when Ted Cruz has seen some big movement in Iowa, a major surge there. Could this have anything to do with Trump's strategy of saying something that is so outrageous it's guaranteed to grab headlines?
Well, one of the things you sometimes see in presidential politics and races for governor of the United States Senate, wedge issues introduced. What is a wedge issue? It puts a space between you and all the rest of your candidates or opponents, forcing them to sound less aggressive than you are on whatever it is. Tax cuts, abortion, gun control, you name it. In this case, Trump is trying to make all of his other Republicans look less aggressive, less eager to take on this battle, less willing to take on the big issue, more willing to be, in his words, politically correct. So it has a strategic underpinning, you could say. But it also, as I said before, runs counter to the Constitution, counter to understood and well-celebrated American values, and in all likelihood would make the battle against this terrorist threat all the more difficult.
This is the thing with Donald Trump, is that he loves being in first place. And when you have some poll numbers that seem to be changing, he's been out of the top spot of news headlines for about a week now, as it's been taken on with other much more urgent matters nationwide. Here you're seeing him going back to his standard line and talking about how great he is, Major.
Well, yes, but there's also other polling data in Iowa that is suggestive of some other trends that are not favorable to Donald Trump. Monmouth University came out with a poll today that had Trump not in the high 30s, not even in the 20s anymore, at 19%, and Texas Senator Ted Cruz in the lead in Iowa. It's one poll. You need to see more data. The CNN poll has Trump at 33%. That's true in Iowa. So there's a huge difference, 14% difference in those polls. And that's something we haven't seen very much, that kind of divergence in polling results taken in the same period of time in the same space, meaning, in this case, Iowa. Iowa's not a space. Iowans, please forgive me. It's a wonderful state in America. So be that as it may, one of the reasons that the polls are so different is the sample size. What the CNN poll tried to bring in is other caucus goers who might show up for the first time, energized by the Trump phenomenon or the Trump campaign. The Monmouth University poll had a smaller, or a survey not necessarily smaller from a numerical point of view, but confined to those who had participated in Republican caucuses previously. So if Trump does enlarge the universe, and I saw this when I covered the campaign of then Senator Barack Obama in Iowa in 2008, when you increase the size of turnout, old polling models don't work. Why? Because they don't capture the universe that's actually going to happen. This is a big question in Iowa. How many Trump supporters will caucus for the first time and show up on his behalf in all 99 counties?
Major Garrett, thank you.
You got it.